Welcome to the MuseCast, where we squeeze every last drop of inspiration out of Sunday's.
Sorry, I thought you. I was waiting for you. That's what I thought.
No, you were.
You said you were as ready as you would ever be. And
Yes.
so I figured, well, I can wait a couple seconds. then.
Oh no, no, that means I'm ready. And then you're like putzing around looking, and oh my word. And you've got on your writing jacket, brown sugar, so now I'm just all confused. What's happening, Dan Ken?
Yeah.
Were you writing?
Not today, but tomorrow I will be.
Okay.
So
Wait, is that brown sugar or is that different?
it is, yes. Yep. No,
Okay.
it's brown sugar. Yeah.
Okay.
So
It's
the
been a
lighting is a little
minute.
different. The
Okay.
lighting's a little different, and the other thing too is like I don't have any sunlight coming in because it gets dark at noon now. So
It does. It's really.
yeah, it's-
I feel like the Lord is calling you to Florida. That's what I feel like.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I get that. I get that
Yeah.
sense from the spirit also.
Yes. Is there a star
Yes.
guiding you
Yeah.
south? To...
Yes, all the stars. Yes.
Oh, very nice. Well,
Mm.
that's a lovely introduction. And we say
is.
welcome and happy Muse Day. He is Dan Kent, still in Minnesota in the dark, as am I, Shawna Boren. And we are here to talk a bit about our Christmas series that we are in. This was week 3? Question mark? Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Let's say yes. Okay. Week 3, question mark, but we're confident. Yes. Greg talked to us about Christmas Magi, right?
Yes.
Because the scene
Yeah.
is in the thing. And so, and before you know it, it will be Christmas time. And before you know it, we'll be back in Revelation. So let's, Dan Kent, let's talk about the summary for Christmas Magi. Magi.
Yeah. How would you? I want to be able to capture that audibly. So I think Christmas magic with the little pause there. I think that's the way to do it. So
Yeah.
yeah. So Christmas Magi. These are the characters that we're looking at here today, this week, and like the last 2 weeks, it's been kind of fun to just kind of look at who are these people, and Greg kind of did that today or this week, and a very interesting group of folks. Just right now, I just questioned. I wonder if they're all men. I wonder, because it's from Babylon and it's free thinking and it's different, auras and all of that. But I've always assumed they're all men. But what we do know is that they are from the East, probably Babylon, and they were kind of like these wise thinkers, these diviners of what is going to happen. And so they looked at like the stars, they looked at the entrails of animals. They had a whole system of studying entrails of animals to figure out what's going to happen. They did dream interpretation, and they did all of these things, but mostly the stars are what they use to kind of figure out what's going on and what's going to happen. And what they found is that there is going to be a new king born in Judea somewhere. And so they take this 900-mile journey through hostile parts of the world to go and witness the birth of this child. And what's really interesting is that their careers are sort of like they're basically professional God disobeyers. they are diviners. They are kind of experts in this occult practice, and they do that. That's what they do. That's their job. So their whole lives are oriented around this profession that the God of the Jews forbid. And so it's just so strange that they're included in the gospel story. Not only are they included in the gospel story, but they're included in Matthew's gospel story, which is so bizarre because Matthew is the most Jewish of the Jewishness of the gospels. I mean, he is very much in touch with the customs and the history of Judaism, and he tailors his gospels to speak to Jewish interests and Jewish concerns and Jewish fears more than any of the other gospel writers. And so for him to include these occult kind of professionals is very, very strange. And so Greg kind of does this aside where he definitely notes that, and he'll come back to that. But then he does this aside where it says it's also interesting how they used the stars to find out that this king was being born. And he gives these 5 astrological kind of events that were very, very rare that took place all within a short period of time. And the speculation is it was these events in combination in the aggregate that led them to think that this king was going to be born there. And of course, they go to Judea, and Herod wants to know all about this. He's the leader at the time, and so he wants to know, tell me about this king that might be a competitor to me. And they all find out where this kid is supposed to be born, in Bethlehem. And so at some point, Herod has all of the boys in Bethlehem killed. Fortunately, Jesus escaped that. But they go to Bethlehem and they witness this birth. And so all of that together, it's just a really strange part of the story where you have these people that are doing the things that God forbids us to do, and yet they are invited and they are drawn to this. And there's a lot that can be said about the Magi story. What Greg kind of notes for us is this. He says, it's important to obey God, of course, and to discern when we are obeying God and when we are straying from the path. But it's also good not to judge others, because, I mean, look at these guys. I mean, these guys are their whole lives are oriented around disobeying God. And yet even they are welcome to be a part of what God is doing in the world. And then the other thing is, there's something admirable about the Magi. And this is his second kind of takeaway. They obviously demonstrate this passion and this hunger to learn about God and to learn what is going on. And they put themselves in great danger, and they're willing to make sacrifices to this king, to be, on good terms with this king. And even though they lack the full knowledge of the God of Israel, they still have this heart that there's something very right about their heart. And so that's the second takeaway is, do we have a hunger like that? Do we follow through and make our hunger do we live that out in our lives? And so even these people who are kind of disobeying God, even they are a role model for for us to learn from. And then the third thing he says is that don't let anything get in the way of loving people. And you have these people who are doing all of these things that God detests and God forbids, and yet they are loved and they are welcomed. And you don't have to agree with all of their occult practices. You don't have to buy into their views of dreams or their work with dead animals to determine things. You don't have to affirm any of that stuff. And you can still love them and affirm them as people. And so those are sort of the main takeaways. And really, that's sort of my summary. I do have some of my own thoughts about the story as well. But in terms of what Greg shared, he spent a lot more time talking about those 5 astrological events. He also described the Magi a little bit more. But in terms of summarizing it, that's what I got.
This reminds me, of the sermon that we never let you live down that you ended with, well, that's my sermon. That's it. That's what I got.
Yeah, that's what I got. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
I thought that was a good way to end a sermon. I thought just because here's the thing about that. It's clear. It states the facts, and it's efficient. People you can leave now. I mean, it's just, no
one had
here's
to wonder.
See, here's the thing, though. In Minnesota, you can't just say goodbye and leave.
No,
a goodbye is a 48-minute process.
My gosh!
And so that's that's the reality, I think.
The Minnesota goodbye is still something it just is like, what are we doing here? I've already said this 3 times. I'd like to go. Anyway. Okay, I want your abrupt ending to the sermon causes me to be my authentic self in this moment. And I authentically want to say I'm a little perplexed, I think is a good word, with this sermon. I'm still mulling it over a bit. That's not to say it wasn't good. It's not to say I didn't learn stuff, but honestly, it's like telling kids, you know what, the Tooth Fairy and Santa and the Easter Bunny are all lies that your parents have told you. Like, I just feel like these ideas we've had of the manger scene and this beautiful, it's just been totally upended for me. And I'm not quite sure what to do with it yet. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's where I am with this sermon.
Yeah, and what you're referring to there is the fact that the Magi weren't in the manger. They were a couple of years later, when Joseph and Mary were already in a house. And and that's very different. And so what do I do with these little figurines I've got next to my little wooden barn made out of popsicle sticks? What do I do with these guys? Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, what do we do with all that? And also, if I'm being really gut level honest, which I don't want to be, but I have to be. I am a little annoyed that these guys get a free pass. But they don't really, right? There's like at my base level core, I'm like, man, like they were doing all these things that weren't even something that God condoned. And God loved them and invited them and made them a part of this grand story. And I'm just like, what the heck? So again, this is just my real raw feelings and thoughts about it all. I do I think that's correct? Of course, but it's not an easy pill to swallow in this moment. Do I believe in the points that Greg made at the end? Of course I do, but this just makes it really real that we can discern right from wrong. We can discern behaviors and safety and all of that, but we are not to judge. And to me, I can say yes and amen to that. But holy buckets, like for those that were out doing all the things that were not to do to get such a prime spot in this historic place in God's story is just like, wow. And really just shows God's creativity and just how amazing he is. And it's just really, it's shocking the lengths that he goes to come to us. And so, and who he will speak through and who he will use and who he will include. And so I've got some work to do to remind myself of who he is and what he's about. If this is like causing me such, consternation about the whole thing. So I don't know, Dan.
One thing I will say is that, and Greg and Paul and I were talking about this on Saturday, and it was actually Paul's point, and I thought it was a really good point. It's just that, if you're thinking about, okay, historically, did these things happen? Well, Matthew would not make this up. No. If Matthew had made up the gospel, he would not include this. And that's where I'm just like, that just screams credibility, because, I could maybe see John doing this, maybe Luke, but not Matthew. Matthew would not make up these occult professionals being a part of the birth of the Jewish Messiah. He just wouldn't do that. And so the fact that it is there, it's possible. It's possible that God included the Magi just as a defeater to the claim that Matthew made up the gospel. I mean, it's almost as if that's how compelling the fact that they're here is to me. And I think that's really cool.
That is very cool. And I agree with you. There is no way, like, again, if he wanted to be credible, which we assume he did, Matthew never would have included, like he would have, buttressed up his story. He would have made sure that all the proper representation was there. And so, yeah, I don't doubt the validity of it. I'm just perplexed by it. And I'm perplexed by how it's landed with me. Yeah. So maybe this is just a time. Maybe I need some time at the feet of Jesus because, yeah, but I love really the picture though of the fact that God will go to any lengths, and that His love is for all, and the invitation is for all, and it's typically on us to accept that or not accept that. And
Mm.
um, there has never been a time that I've read or heard or studied the Christmas story where I don't just go, man, what was up with Herod? Like, what
Yeah.
wounds did that man have to be so awful and so paranoid and just so like, I mean, just think of, I mean, thankfully Jesus was spared, but think of all the young males under the age of 2 that were not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just awful just to feed something in him. And so what is his story? And the fact that I'm sure God loved him as well. I don't know, Dan. I need you to bring this show
Mm.
to a sense of reality, of stuff. Let's talk about something that makes sense. Let's like get to
Yeah.
some talking points. Let's
Well,
answer some questions. We got to do something because
I do
I'm
have some.
perplexed.
I do
Okay,
have some.
great.
But
Great.
yes, yeah. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can refill your Christmas spirit because I feel like you've had a leak. You know, I feel like some of your Christmas spirit has leaked out. I think you need to
Mhm.
maybe decorate your little porcelain tree behind you. Maybe that'll help. Put some little lights on there. But yeah, I think one thing I would say is what I've always appreciated about the Christmas story. And we're going to talk more about this on Christmas Eve. Greg is going to talk about this, but I just love the fact that this isn't just mindless, naive positivity. This isn't like
Yeah.
a celebration of just happiness. It's not a big
Mhm.
happy fest. It's a real world, and it's good news for a real world. It's good
Mhm.
news for a world that is distraught, full of people who are harassed and helpless, full of people who are wandering and lost and looking and clinging to whatever they can cling to find some semblance of order, some semblance of truth. And it's in that world that's so chaotic and harassed and helpless that the good news comes. And the joy is not like this superficial, exterior, out there joy. It's this joy that comes in through this very real world. And that's why I've always loved about it. It's just these people are just, and I talked about this when I talked about Anna. It's just how real these people are,
Mhm.
and how God fills real holes of real people, and I just think that's part of the beauty of the story. The other thing I would say is part of the reason why I am so compelled by the Magi is because these are deep thinkers. These are
Yeah.
kind of they think more abstract than the shepherds do. I mean, last week we talked about the shepherds who were just these blue collar kind of fellas, and they were guys, and they hung out and drunk wine, and they probably made inappropriate jokes and whatever. They're guys. Well, the Magi are very different than that. These guys are formal thinkers. They think more abstractly. They're seeking truth. The shepherds probably are just seeking their next paycheck. They just want to
Mhm.
live. They don't care about the answers to these things, but the Magi do. And what's compelling is how they're included in the story, because I think part of what's being said there, or at least it says this to me, is that all of the people who are seeking truth in the world, no matter how strange or how different their paths look, the destination is Jesus. That
Mhm.
Jesus is the one who answers all of the various deep questions from every perspective and every culture. And I think, to me, that's what's hinted at in this, is
Mhm.
that um, even though this happened in Bethlehem, in Judea, in this part of the world, it's a truth that fills us no matter where we are in the world. And I love that part of the story as well.
Mhm. Well, okay, Dan, give yourself a high five because you are recovering this quite a bit for me. So thank you for this reminder because this was good news for a real world of people who were living real things in life, real circumstances, real struggles, and God shows up in that in these beautiful ways. And Jesus is the destination for all these various people. And so I just want to say thank you. You're helping me here recover this. It does. I have a question, and this is just a weird little like itch in my brain, but it's like, when the Magi were on their way on the journey and they encounter Herod, right? And he asks them like, what, hey, or someone asked like, hey, what's going on? And they just hey, so there's these signs that a new king is being born. Like, did they not think that they should maybe keep that to themselves? Yeah. Did they not think that, oh, this could tick Herod off? This could be a trigger for him, and he'll go on a Killmonger fury or something. I don't know.
That's a really good question, and there's probably no answer to it. But I would say that given what I've read about these types of situations, I think it's always better to, if you can, tell the truth of why you're there. Because if you tell an offensive truth, you might be just redirected. If you lie and are caught, you're going to be, killed. And so it's better to just say what you're there for. Now, when they were told in the dream that Herod, Herod was going to do, then they're like, okay, now we know what this guy's about. Let's get the heck out of here. And they took a different way home. And so I don't know how I looked at it. I was actually intrigued and impressed by their political savvy there. Mm-hmm. The fact that they had this interaction with Herod, and Herod's political savvy too, just tell me where he is so that I might go and worship him also.
Oh, yes.
It's like, yeah, right, whatever,
Uh-huh.
and but they took him at his word. And, a lot of the nuance of all of those situations have been destroyed just by the simplicity of the gospel. But, but the little fragments that we have seem very credible, is what I would say.
Absolutely. No, you're right. You're right. And I don't think Herod was an idiot, and he definitely knew how to play the game. Let's just put it that way. And we have, of course, the benefit of hindsight to know. We know the whole story. And so it's a lot easier for me to sit here and go, what were y'all thinking? So, yeah.
Yep.
I really do think it's cool, though, that the part that Greg brought out about their hunger, like just to discover what this was all about, that was really cool and challenging. I mean, this wasn't a simple jaunt across the street. Like, let's go check this out. Like this was a journey that they had to go on, and it was something different than what their particular expertise or beliefs were, but they were following what they believed to be the truth, and of course this invitation. And so I think that was really powerful. We like our convenience, I will say. We meaning those of us living in this time and in this particular place. I don't know that it's just an American thing, but we do. We like our convenience, and to think of being inconvenienced in such a way, to sacrifice things in such a way, is not something that we easily relate to, I don't think, all the time. So I was really challenged and encouraged by that from the Magi.
Yeah. And, I thought about that too. I wonder, I think we are all, I love convenience. You spend a lot of your life just kind of getting things ordered where you want them. I've got my word station here. I've got my this is my big Oxford dictionary, and then this is my thesaurus, and the big thesaurus, not like a simplistic one. This is a good thesaurus. And then down here I've got my Revelation books, and it's just, I have it all set up the way I want. And then if you could see, like, off this way, just on the other side of this window, that's my little espresso machine. So in the morning I can have my little espresso. I don't have to drive and go. I have it right here. And this is my office. I got all my books here. And then over there I have my whiteboard, and I have it all laid out so that I can be productive in the way that I like to be productive. And so you're right. We do like to, have all these conveniences. And I tell you, if God told me, Dan, you need to journey to Nebraska and carry with you your espresso machine and carry with you your favorite books, because you're going to give those to this baby, that's a tough sell for me. But if I really believed that this baby was who the Gospels say he was, well, then like it really changes. Like it's like, well, now I'm happy to do whatever I can do, and I think that is when you look at the what I long for when I see the Magi is I long for the conviction. Like I really think this is true. That conviction that makes this sacrifice and this journey make sense. Like, of course I would do this because there's so many sacrifices where I'm just like, I don't want to do that. But they didn't seem like that at all. They seem like, well, of course we're going to do this. This makes the most sense. And there's a conviction behind that I think God wants us to have. And I hope that I continue to grow toward that as well.
Yeah, I so agree with you. I think that's been the cool part about this Christmas series is when you look at these characters that are a part of the story. Now they're not main characters. We've said that over and again, because that is Jesus, in case you guys were wondering. But they are these supporting characters who have a place in this story. The things that we can pull from them and learn from them and be challenged by because of what we see in them, or be encouraged by because of what we see in them. It's been really cool. And so, see, Dan, you're bringing me right back. You're bringing me right back to hope and Christmas and seeking and all is well. All is well.
Yeah.
I think that's the cool part
God
about this.
Bless us, everyone.
Everyone. It's so good. I do think, though, this is the beauty of our teaching team because we are all so different. We all have different, of course, stories and histories of our own, and we see things differently in the text. And I think we were talking earlier, like I know I certainly wouldn't have looked at this the way that Greg did and done the deep dive into the astrology of it all the way that he did. But it was fascinating, and I'm appreciative of that. I think that's how you really do learn and grow, and how God can show up in surprising ways and teach you things in surprising ways. So I really appreciate that. All of that to say, though, if Daniel Joseph Kent were not, now you can't give me a whole sermon, we don't have time for that. But if you were to have taught us about the Magi, what is something that stood out to you that you would have wanted to bring forth? That's pressure.
Yeah, I think I kind of stepped on your touchdown there a little bit because I feel like that is the thing. Just the fact that the truth of God expressed in Christ is the truth that all thinkers and all pursuers of truth, it is the treasure, it is the light that fills their darkness. And so I think that's probably what I would have if I had to focus on something else. That's what it would be for sure.
Yeah. And you saying that makes me think and see something in them that I didn't before. And that's a certain humility, a certain humbleness, because like you said, they were thinkers. And they had knowledge. And it could have been easy to discount this idea of this journey. It could have been easy for them to go, Now, yes, there were these events, these astrological signs that led them to believe this, but they could have thought their way out of it. But there was something about, I don't know if it was a hunger in their hearts or just a curiosity or whatever it was, but it led them to Jesus. And I just think that's really cool and really powerful and really beautiful. And we do a lot of thinking and a lot of teaching around our church. But I also love it when we can think something different sometimes than what we expect, because we've been challenged to think differently or invited to think differently. And I don't know if that makes sense, but that's something that I'm seeing in these, I'm going to say humans, because you raised the question of like, were they men? We assume so, but whatever, these Magi, that's something I'm seeing in them now from what you've shared. So thanks for that.
Oh, good. Yeah. So what do you think? Is it time?
I think it's time, Dan. My wheels are turning and I think it's time. What are you? Okay, there we go.
Well, I was waiting for the green light.
Oh, okay. Nuggets. I was like, what? That's not the nugget dance. Okay. Woo. Okay. We're going to be in sync from here on out, Dan Kent.
Yeah, that's right.
What's going to happen? We're going to do nugget time. We're going to thank everyone for being here. Thank you. And hey, if you have comments or questions, still send them in. Like we like to circle back to stuff. So if you have a thought about the Magi, Dan, MuseCast at whchurch.org. He's gonna show you right where that is. We'd love to hear it and discuss it further. I'm back. I'm back on the Christmas train and happy and ready to go. I would love it though, Dan, if you would share your nugget first.
Sure. Yeah.
To come up with something.
Yeah, right. Well, I have a poem from Yeats about the Magi. Now, I've only read this just today, so I haven't really cogitated on this poem yet, but there's a couple elements in it that I really like. And so there might be something in here that's really dumb, and I might even be saying something sacrilegious. That's how little I've pondered this. But there's just a couple parts of this that I really like, and so I want to share it. And it's called The Magi, and it reads like this. It says, "Now as at all times, I can see in the mind's eye, in their stiff painted clothes, the pale, unsatisfied ones. They appear and disappear in the blue depths of the sky, with all of their ancient faces like rain-beaten stones, and all of their helms of silver hovering side by side, and all of their eyes still fixed, still hoping to find once more, being by Calvary's turbulence unsatisfied, the uncontrollable mystery on the bestial floor." And so that's a poem about the Magi. And what I like about that is Yeats it talks about how they appear and disappear in the blue depths of the sky. And how I discern that, or how I interpret that, is that these people, they think the answer is there, and they just lose themselves in that pursuit. So they appear and disappear in that pursuit of truth, and they've done this for a long time, where it shows on their faces that they have pursued this. They're rain-beaten stones is what their faces look like, and they have all of these valuables, but they take it with them on this pursuit that it seems like it fills this thing that they've had their eyes fixed on. They're hoping to find it once more. There's this idea there where the poem turns, where it's almost as if it's a reliving of the Christmas story again and again, where it's almost like they're circling back to this point of going to the Messiah. They went to the Messiah. They heard about Calvary and the crucifixion and the turbulence there. And somehow they ended up in this place where they're no longer satisfied with all of that. And yet they come back to the bestial floor. They come back to this stable where God has become a babbling baby, and there's something uncontrollable about that. There's some mystery about that it recaptures them, and they're hoping to find that magic that they found before. And it just, to me, as you get older and you read the Christmas story, wisdom and maturity and experience, if you don't bring all of that wisdom, maturity, and experience back to the Christmas story and read it through those new, wiser, more mature, more experienced eyes, you're really missing out. And that's what I love about that poem and how it relates to this week's sermon. And that is my nugget.
Well, nice job, Dan. Maybe we should edit this in post so that closes out the show, because it's really good. I think my nugget is I'm just going to continue on this vulnerability train. And I'm just going to ask everyone, like, who do the Magi represent for you in your life today? Like, who is that person or that group of people that you just think couldn't possibly? There is no way that God would use them and the way they live their life and the way they speak and the way they do the things. Who is it in your life that you would go, no? Because for me, at least, that's been the challenge that Greg laid before us when looking at these folks. That he used someone unexpected to be a part of his story. It is beautiful, and I can look at that and wonder, but then I also think I'm supposed to look at that and go, okay, where am I using that judgment that we're not supposed to use on others in my life? Where am I looking at people's outward actions or their words or their behaviors and I'm making an assumption about them that doesn't line up with what God sees in them and says about them? Where am I going beyond discernment to judgment? And so that's not a fun, feel good nugget, but I think it's a challenge that I invite you all to embrace alongside myself. And then secondly, I know the third point was to never let anything get in the way of love. But secondly, is it, like you said, just that conviction to strive toward Jesus, just to go after him. That is something that I think in my convenience in my life, I've not had to struggle with. It's like, I love Jesus. I know he loves me. I serve him. And, but just this striving, this journeying toward him. I want to have that kind of a conviction. I want to be reminded of what it means to be drawn to him because he loves me so, and has included me in his grand story. And yeah, so that's my nugget, just kind of focused around those three final points that Greg made in this sermon. But really, that first one, like, who in my life am I, judging instead of rightly discerning? Who am I discounting because I don't see what God sees? And then God, give me eyes to see what you see, which goes back to a previous Christmas sermon in the series. So that's what I got, Dan.
Yeah, that's great. I think a question as a nugget is a good thing because, especially a question like that, because it's a nugget that you keep chewing on. It can you can re-shine it, you can repurpose it. So I think it's a good nugget.
Very good. All right, folks. Well, we thank you for tuning in and being a part of this. We look forward to chatting 4 p.m. on the YouTube, and keep coming. Oh, yes, sir. Am I forgetting something?
I was just going to say, I think, no, I take that finger back. That's
okay.
Hold on, just put that back in my pocket.
Yep. Put that away, sir. No thinking here.
Yeah, that's right. I'm good.
But should we say that next week is going to look a little different, Dan, because it is Christmas, and it'll look very different in that we won't be here.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Well, we should definitely say that we have our service on Sunday, and then we have another service on Tuesday. That's the Christmas Eve service.
Yes.
And I already forgot what time that is. It's 4:00, right? The Christmas Eve service?
Well, Eastern time.
3 o'clock?
It's 3:00 Central. Yes.
We're going to have a whole group of people who are an hour late because of me. That's awesome. That's
way to go, Dan. It is 3 p.m. Central time. Right here is where we are.
Let me hit the rewind button. Yes, it's at 3:00. That's what time okay, good.
That's right. That's right. So we hope that you'll join us. For those of you who can come on in, do that. We'll be there. It'll be great. It's family friendly, and we'll have refreshments and Christmas cookies afterwards. And for those who can't be in person, tune in online because it will be broadcast, and that'll be great. And so no MuseCast next week means a double whammy the following week. It'll just be glorious. A big old honker of a MuseCast.
That's right.
A double burger. It'll be great.
Yep.
So we hope you'll join us either online or in person for our Christmas Eve service next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Hope to see you there. And then we'll see you guys the following week for another MuseCast where we continue the conversation of all that's gone on between now and then. I'm sure it'll be a lot of good stuff to talk through.
Indeed.
Have a wonderful week, everyone. Hey, have a Merry, Merry Christmas. Hope that you guys just enjoy love and life and goodness, and just you feel the embrace of Jesus during this time of year. We really appreciate you guys.
Yep.